Okay, so after our copy and move tool, let's take a look at our trim and align tools. And so the trim command is going to be something you'll use. I particularly use it a lot with walls and some finish items, and also when you're sketching floors and those types of things. And all these tools, by the way, we'll use throughout the assignments. This is just a brief an overview of them and how they work, and then we'll continue to apply them throughout the rest of the course. So let's go ahead and try out the trim tool. So if I click here on this wall, I'm going to go ahead and extend the wall. So if I click and drag on this blue dot, that's going to allow me to extend the wall. Go ahead and just extend both of them here. And that's, of course, a very arbitrary dimension and measurement, but that's okay for us practicing this tool. We go ahead and go to our trim extend corner tool, and I'm going to click on that. And it's very important to note that, again, this is a 2-click command, but you want to click on the portion of the element that you want to keep. All right, that's going to be very important as I show you this tool here. So let's say I just want to trim this corner so that it is just the way that it was before. So I'm going to click on the portion, again, the portion of that I want to keep. So if I want to keep this portion of the wall, I need to make sure that I click on this side of the wall as is relative to the object I'm trimming it against, which is this wall. So if I click here and then I click here, you can see that little dash blue line. That's giving you an indication of what you're going to keep. All right, so I'm going to click the second command. All right, and you can see that it's going to trim the excess off of those walls. I'm going to exit my command by clicking modify, and I'm going to undo that. Up here at the top, you have an undo and a redo button. I'm going to click undo just so that we can do it the other way so you can see how it works. So I'm going to hit trim, extend the corner, and I'm going to hit on the other sides of the wall so you can see what will happen. Again, that dashed blue line giving you an indication what you're going to keep. All right, so that's going to trim the corner there. If I wanted to trim this back to here, I can do that. Same thing here. All right, if I just want to trim an element to a certain line, I can do that as well. Let's go ahead and practice our copy command. 1 click to start, second to place. It's in multiple, so second place. Again, up to click on modify to end a command. If I want to trim all of these walls to this wall here to the same line, I can do that with these 2 commands. They're the same thing. The only difference is this will only trim a single element, whereas if you have multiples, then you're going to want to use the trim extend multiple elements. So I'll click on that. My first command here is going to be where the line that I want to trim to. So I'm going to trim to that line. So again, I want to click on the portion that I want to keep. So if I want to keep this portion here, again, that dashed blue line giving you a preview what you're keeping, I'll click, 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 and then click all the way across, hit modify to end my command. If I wanted to keep another portion of that, I can use the same command, start at the same line, say that one I wanted to keep that side, and that side, and that side. So really a very helpful command. You can very quickly start to trim elements to a certain line. This will also work if the element is not extended to that line. So again, I'm just clicking and dragging on those blue dots to adjust the wall lengths. But let's say I want to extend something to that. Click on that line, that dashed blue line, give me the preview again, and I can trim to that element. Click on modify to end the command there. And then let's take a look here. Those are our trim commands. So this, again, does the same thing. It'll just do it for one element, not for multiples. We kind of skipped over our rotate command. Let's go through that one now. Rotate is just going to be rotate an object around. So we have our desk here. Same thing as the move and copy command, 2-click command. And if you have your element selected before you start, it'll kick you right into that command. So I'm going to click on rotate. It automatically puts me into that command since I had the desk selected. So the first click is your point of reference where you're starting from. Move your cursor in the direction that you want to rotate it. And then you can either use the temporary dimension there as an assist, or you can type in a dimension of an angle that you would like it to rotate against. This, I think, is a good opportunity to look at our align command. Oh, one more thing on the rotate. It always defaults to the center of an object, but if you wanted to rotate it about one point of the object, you're just going to click on that blue dot and drag it, and then I can rotate it around that corner of the element instead of around the center. So you do have control over where that rotation origin is. All right, next, let's look at our align command. It's going to be up here. So align is going to align one of our elements with a selected element. Also, as you can see here for these commands, if you ever need a refresher on them or just a little hint as to what they are again, if you hover over it, it's going to give you a little preview of a demonstration of the tool's capabilities. So just always keep that in mind. I know there's a lot of different tools we're going over right now, but just know you can, of course, always rewatch this video or get these helpful little hints from Autodesk. So similar to what you saw there in the demonstration, you can align elements to each other. So I'm going to click on align. So in particular, something like this with the angle is a good example. I want to make sure right away that there's no offset. There's normally not a default for that, but that's because I'm doing offset, not align. There we go. So back to align. So the first click is going to be the object that you want to align to, and then second click is the object that you want to align. So it's set defaults to doing multiple alignments, which just means you could align multiple desks to this angle, or you can unclick that and just do one. It's going to prefer wall faces. We'll get into what these other elements mean in a different lecture. So to align this desk to the wall, I'm going to click on the wall first, and then I'm going to click onto the desk. So it automatically snaps it to the wall, especially for something like an angle like that. You don't have to go measure the angle and then try to rotate it accordingly. You can just use the align tool to quickly move it across. Same thing with these desks that are out of alignment. You'll notice a lot of elements have center lines kind of built into them. As I hover across, it's giving me a preview of that. So if I click, oh, I'm still in multiple alignment. I should end that command. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to start a new command, a new alignment here. So if I want to align the center line from one to another, you can start to quickly line up your elements. So let's do one more here. One click to start. Second click moves one object. Third click for that next object. You can also move walls, by the way, and elements just with kind of a drag and drop. Just do keep in mind that it is not very accurate. And if you need something to be very accurate and dimension, then that's kind of a quicker way, but not the most accurate way to do that. But just know that you can also just kind of click and drag and move elements around. All right, let's take a look at our array tool here. So the array is going to allow you to quickly copy and reproduce multiple elements. So for this, I'm going to make our space a little bit bigger here. I'll pull the wall out and I'm going to go ahead and delete this. To delete this object, I can go up here and hit the delete button once it's selected, or I can just hit the delete key and that will delete an object. So I'm going to go ahead and select these three desks, and I can do that two ways. I can do a crossing box over the elements. So if I go left to right, it's going to select just what's ever in that crossing box. Or if I want to select individually, I can select an element, hold down Control, and then select multiple elements at once. Once I've done that, I can go ahead and array these very quickly. So similar to what that demonstration showed, this is really helpful for repetitive furniture items, such as rows of seating in an auditorium, training tables or desks in a classroom or training environment. And so it does it very quickly. So once I have my item selected, I'll click on array. I'll set my base point, and then I'm going to set how far I want these apart from each other from that base point. So I'll say 8 foot, so we have a little bit of a corridor here. And I'll click to start it. And then you'll see here with the 2, that 2 is telling me how many sets of that array exist. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to 4. And you'll see that it automatically spaces these out into 4 different items. Note that it is keeping the same distance between these aisles as it does from my original array. All right, so it's going to take that little calculation there and then replicate it as many times as I tell it to. Okay, always keeping that space and that distance. That is going to be a little bit different Then the array, let's go ahead and I'll copy this down too, a couple more. All right, go ahead and I'll select these with that left-hand crossing box, and I'll select my array again. Okay, so the array that we used before had this move to second, which means that it's going to repeat that distance from the set point to the second point throughout the rest of the array, versus this, if I set it to last, this gives me the opportunity to infill between 2 points. All right, so this one's taking a set point and propagating that and always keeping that distance, versus this one, I'm going to set my start point and my end point. Okay, and then that would be, if I just did 2, that would be my 2. If I change that to 4, it's going to automatically infill with equal spacing in between the first point and the last point, as opposed to this other one that's keeping that set spacing no matter what. So they could look similar at certain points in time, but when it comes down to it, this one is going to be infilling the spaces equally throughout, versus this one, if I then did like 20, it's going to keep that set spacing. Okay, this can also be really helpful laying out light fixtures and whatnot. Okay, let's move on to our offset tool. So our offset is going to create a copy of an item, but it's going to determine the distance that you are creating the copy right away in the middle of the command. So it is similar to copy, but it does have a little bit of more power to it, really just with chained elements. So go ahead and start the offset. The default here is 5 foot, and it's telling me it's a copy. So if I then hover over this wall and I click, it's going to create a copy of that wall 5 feet off. If I don't tell it, uncheck that it's a copy, it's just going to move that element based on the offset distance. So I just canceled that last one there. But a lot of the times you want it to be an offset, or a copy. It just kind of, it depends on what you're doing. Just you want to know the difference between having that selected or not. And one of the great things about the offset command too is that if you were to select a chain of elements, so I'll go ahead and change that to 2 foot. I'm going to hover on these walls here. If I hit tab, well, I want to make sure I click in my field first instead of highlight tab up here in the text box, but I'll click on within my window. If I hover over a wall and I hit tab, you can see that it went from just selecting that one wall to a chain of the walls. And if I were to then click offset, it's going to offset the entire chain all at once. So really handy for that if you have, either you need to move walls within a room a certain distance, or you have an additional layer or something that's going on, it can very quickly roll through that command. All right, just a couple more here. We have our split element command. This is really helpful with walls and finishes. We'll use that down the line for that. But basically all that it's going to do is I hover here and then one click and it's going to split my element. So then I would have 2 different walls here. And when we get into talking about different wall types, we'll talk about why this tool is really useful and helpful. But then that means I have 2 different walls now that can be split apart really easily. All right, our last one here is going to be our scale tool, but we're going to talk about that in another session here. Of note, we do have this pin tool, and the pin tool is going to lock an object down. So if I have a wall that I know is set and I don't want it to be able to be moved or dragged around, I can pin it, and you'll see that little pin there. Now if I try to drag it or if I try to move it, I can't adjust it, so it's pinned in place. You can easily unpin by checking the pin. But this is really handy once you get, certain walls set for clearances or in a certain design. You can pin them so you don't accidentally drag them, and do something like that. All right, now one of the fun things here, we are in a 3D modeling program. So although we have only been working on our floor plan here with our tools, a lot of these tools can be applied in 3D views as well, in addition to ceiling plans and elevations. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to our 3D view. You can see right now that we don't have a 3D view. Okay, we have our floor plans, our ceiling plans, and elevations. But if I click up here on the little house in the 3D view, it's going to automatically generate our 3D view here, and you can see all of the little desks and our walls. And I'm just zooming in and out using the wheel on my mouse here to navigate. If you hold down on Shift and click on the wheel of your mouse, you can see that those arrows pop up and you can pan around a model with that. And then you can also use this navigation cube up here in the top right to navigate you around. I tend to use the Shift and the wheel command the most, but there are multiple options for how you would like to navigate that 3D view. All right, and that's all for this video.